Hello my friends, I'm Alexander Williamson and this is FISHTORY. So today I want to talk to you about something that you've probably never had access to before, which is wholesale pricing of ornamental fish, of the fish in the hobby that we all love. And some of it's rather shocking, what you'd pay if you're bringing it in from overseas, or what you pay just at wholesale level in the United States. And these price lists are carefully guarded in our hobby, and it's very, very hard to find them if you look on Google or on the internet. So in doing so, I know that I will upset some of the people in the industry. However, I think by doing so and by talking about why things are priced the way they are and what people charge and what red flags we see later on down the chain, whether that's Transhippers or that's online retailers or local stores, that we can have a better hobby that's more ethical and that treats fish correctly, and also that treats humans correctly and pays them a fair price, because the money is going to someone along the lines, and I think you're going to be completely shocked when you see how much a fish goes for wholesale. Hello friends, and welcome to the shocking part of today's program, where you see the prices of wholesale fish in the US. Here you can see lemon tetras, 25 cents, neon tetras, 23 cents. Now mind you, this is the cost in the US landed, whether that's in New York, LA, Seattle, Florida, in Tampa or Miami. All these places have wholesalers, and these people are buying from sources outside the US that are either farms, usually in Southeast Asia, high-end stuff coming out of Europe, or they're buying from sources that have a little bit of everything that are Transhippers, and we'll talk about those soon. But when you see people online in Facebook groups offering very cheap prices for fish, wanting orders ahead of time, things like that, what's going on? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it a good deal for everyone? Or is it something deceptive going on that's bad for the fish? And that can all depend on how it's handled. But I want you to just get a real sense for the price of these fish. And this is with the cost of overnight air freight and probably holding them ahead of time at a facility in the country that they're being ordered from, and then landing them in the US and then bagging them up, and then you need to pay shipping on top of this price listed. And a lot of times there's a minimum that could be several $1,000s even, and a lot of times it's done by boxes. So here in the middle column, these numbers, the 300, the 200 that you see on your screen, that is how many of these fish each will fit in a box. And some people say you need to order 3 boxes or 5 boxes for this to be worthwhile wholesale, and then you need your wholesale license and so forth. But as you can see, Serpe tetras, 29 cents. Florida grown ones, 55 cents. And to me, it's just incredible when you compare that to the store price of $2.99 or $3.99 at best. And in many cases, you're seeing $4.99, $5.99 for even these types of fish here these days. And there's reasons why those prices could be going up. For instance, Aquarium Call-Up pays benefits to their employees. That costs a whole lot of money. And I personally shop there. I support that because of that. They only sell at their one store, though, in person. So let's talk about some of the other fish on this list, just to really give you a sense of the prices that are going on in the fish world. I mean, we're talking about, celebi and threadfin rainbow fish going for $1.90 each. Gertrude Aru2s and Furcata forktail rainbow fish, $1.90 each. And that is just, the tip of the iceberg. So as we go up this, you can see Harlequin rasboras, 63 cents. You can see clown loaches, $2.50. Mollies and platies, 55 cents, 45 cents, 33 cents. Endlers, 33 cents. I mean, the prices are very interesting when you think of what you pay at retail. Maybe $3 to $10 depending on the fish we're talking about. So let's look at some others. I mean, Danios, which may only be $1.99. Well, they're paying 16 cents or 12 cents for that, plus the cost of shipping and their time going to the airport, picking it up, and so forth. So this is what a wholesale setup looks like, and this is what your local fish store is paying, something along these lines. So what are these people that are selling wholesale, what do they have to pay? And where are they getting their fish? So that's what we'll be looking at in a moment on the next list.
And I just want to show you some African fish here, just because we're going to be looking at a Nigerian list. But, you know, for a bleaker eye, $6.25 for a bleaker eye cichlid, very pretty cichlid. And for a lot of the crebensis and things, $1.25, $2, $2.75, $1.40. I mean, it's kind of all over the map. And here you can see Oscars. They really can vary, but $1.35 is where they start, and then they go up to $7.50 if they're 5 inches. Now, that's really because they take up space. It's not because of any other factor so much as that they take up space as a fish, and they also eat more. However, a lot of these fish in bad situations won't even get fed. They'll be flipped so quickly that they won't get fed or put into quarantine. So now let's take a look at some of these African fish. So here you can see $7 for these kinds of fish here. So let's look at this. Synodontis angelicus, $7, something like that. $4 for the smallest one. Let's compare that to our list that I recently got from a person in Nigeria. Alright, so right back at the Synodontis angelicus, and we're looking at $4.21 for the smaller size, and for the largest ones, $5.90 for 8 to 10 inch fish. Now these go for, you know, up to $50 in the store very easily, oftentimes. And Synodontis of all different sorts are on this list, and they're much cheaper, the other ones, usually 90 cents, $1, $1.05. And some of these prices you may think, well, they're not that different than the prices that I just saw on the list coming out of the US that you showed. Well, there's certain fish where it makes a big difference. A Mabu puffer, for instance, is going for $30, and those will retail for $200 to $300. You know, for something like a Biochar, in these polypterus category, these are going, when they're full grown, for $15 to $20. I mean, there are some really rare albino forms on here for $140 and stuff that are being grown on farms, but most of these are going to be much, much cheaper, somewhere in the $4 or $5, even down to, you know, 50 cents, $1, $2.36 range. And it's pretty incredible to see some of these prices. Now, overseas, sometimes the prices don't seem that much better, and it's because there are deals worked out between those wholesalers that have prices like the ones we already saw and prices like these. So you may see that it's the same price if you tried to order it from that person in the US and you're ordering it overseas. Well, if they place an order for, you know, 1,000 of the fish or 500 of the fish rather than 20 or 100, they're very possibly getting it for even half the price listed here, especially if it's up to that collector what they pay for the fish. They can put a bounty on that fish and then go collect it out in the wild. But here you can see things like aphosimians, you know, killifish, an interesting wild, beautiful species, different wild species all listed on here, and most are between, you know, 50 cents, 35 cents, 45 cents, up to maybe $1, $1.90. Mormorids going for $1, going for 90 cents. I mean, it's pretty incredible when you see some of this stuff going on. So now let's talk about once you decide to get it in the US and how people are getting species from lists like this in the US. There are a couple ways. So let's talk about it, and let's talk about how many steps these fish are going through stress-wise and health-wise before they get to you. Alright, so getting the fish into the US. There are several ways to do this. You can either handle it yourself, and that means that you understand filling out all the proper paperwork for each species coming in, knowing your quantities, and also your local laws. Because at any time, the customs agents at either end could end up seizing or putting a hold on something. And oftentimes putting a hold on fish means they get set in a warehouse that may or may not be heated, may or may not be air conditioned, and simply your fish are left to waste. And this happens to my friends that import. I mean, you may be paying 15 cents for Neocaridina shrimp, but maybe every 5th order, they all die, or someone intercepts it, or something's going on. You know, they put a suspicious order on it. Some of these countries are very chaotic, and even, you know, bribes in the form of taxes and tariffs are needed. So, you know, there may be an extra, you know, agriculture or wildlife fee for a certain species, and it's, you know, $100 or something. That stuff still goes on. So let's skip all of that, because that's getting into the weeds of the details here. But you can either find these lists from people who are willing participants in selling, like the Nigerian list that I personally was sent, and you can import, and you can go down to the airport and wait. Now, most of these kind of people will still have minimums. You may need to order $500. It may be a price amount, maybe several $1,000s, or it may be a certain number of boxes, and they may need to be full. So you have to strategically order certain fish, and sometimes they'll even fill the last of the box with whatever they have extras of. And that's why at local fish stores, sometimes you'll see a crazy deal on something that you don't usually see. And it's oftentimes because they're thrown in as kind of the extra fish, or because the order list has changed since they typed it up, and now it's different. And they fill out your list, since you already sent them the money, almost in blind faith in some cases. You already sent them the money, so they're going to send you something if they're a legitimate business, and, you know, that's up to them. So that is what local shops and people like Dan's Fish will do, is they will find the best people who are sourcing and caring for their fish well. They will investigate, you know, they will call the person up, they'll video chat with them, they will talk to other importers and understand, you know, who's reputable, who's taking care of the fish, who's deworming them, who's doing different processes, or maybe they don't do any of that, but it's very transparent that none of that's been done. It's going to need to be handled in the United States. In that case, it's really down to how they pack the fish. How many fish are packed into a bag? How big are the fish? Do they fast the fish first? So is there going to be a bunch of fish waste in the bag causing ammonia to build up? And are the fish going to be biting each other if they're aggressive fish? All these things need to be considered, and all these things take skill and experience to handle. And it goes into these well-established lines that get set up to supply quality fish to different places. Now, places like Redfish Bluefish, he imports, but he gets things from Europe. So he's finding lists with much higher prices, but they are doing farm-raised fish inside, you know, warehouses that have very high levels on quality control and things like that. So he may be paying 5 or 10 times more for certain fish, but the level of quality of how the fish looks, its health, and the fact that he quarantines it, I know he does because he's just that kind of guy, but a lot of shops would say, okay, well, I have the confidence in this shipper that I don't need to. So that's something else you want to check out when you're buying fish from a source is, are they still quarantining? Are they taking the word of someone else? You know, are they giving an observation period? And then when they sell you the fish, when you buy it from their website, how are they packing it? Are they putting a heat pack in? Are they packing a bunch of fish together, or are they, you know, putting a reasonable number in a bag? Are they using breather bags? Are they recommending overnight shipping? That's key. If they're not, I mean, they're just hoping your fish are going to die, basically, in a lot of cases. I hate to say it, but they just want you to reorder. And yes, shipping is expensive. It may be $60 as a retailer, you know, a retail customer to order something overnight just for a few fish in a box. But that's the price of business right now with the cost of air freight. So the other kind of seller is going to be a transshipper and the people under them. And this works as sort of a franchise type thing. There's a few different ways it works, in that there are localized shippers and wholesalers that will put out a list to anybody with a business, and they'll put out a list very similar to that first list we looked at. It'll have prices, and they'll be somewhere between that price range and maybe double that price, and depending on the part of the country. So if you're in Florida, prices are going to be much lower, or New York or LA, places where either fish are farmed or fish are imported in mass and then stored, they're going to have cheaper prices. But the farther out you go into the United States, farther away from hub cities and from the coasts, the more you're probably going to be paying, because there's more air flight and more mail cost in delivery of that freight, but there's also just the feasibility of how far they have to drive to the closest airport to get any fish, even if it's from other U.S. sources. And so these sources, places like, say, Aquahuna or Aquatic Arts, they either sell to the public directly and they have a price, and that's the price once they've quarantined the fish and they've watched them and they've medicated them and they've fed them and tried to get them looking their best. They've had any fish deaths that are going to happen, and they've acclimated them to water. So if you're thinking of the steps, a quality online fish retailer, and that's why I only recommend certain people, Aquatic Arts, Dan's Fish, Redfish, Bluefish, the Wet Spot, Imperial Tropicals. These are some of the ones that I really believe in as sources. And they're getting their things, one, from better quality wholesalers that have already taken some of these steps and allowed their fish to settle and adjust to whatever their water is, or a neutral water. They will then inform the online store or the retail store of what those water parameters are. And then they'll get the fish and they will adjust their water parameters to that or to the local tap water. If you're really lucky, they'll do it to the local tap water, and that takes time. It can take a month or two in some cases, and it may even take that long just for them to get it to neutral tap water. And for my money, that is worth its weight in gold, because otherwise you can have many fish that you'll just put in a tank. They'll die in the next week or two slowly of shock or of getting sick, getting ick, getting fin rot, and things like that. Now, they will buy from their either foreign sources or their wholesalers, and then they will hold on to the fish. They will suffer another round of losses, and when you see dead fish in a fish store, especially if it's on delivery day, that's not that rare. You shouldn't see a ton, but you may see a few in each tank if there's 100 new fish in each tank that day. That's just the reality of things. But a week out, those fish have settled and they're ready for a new home. Now, many fish stores don't quarantine. That's another reason why I mentioned, Aquarium Co-op, is they quarantine. Moonlight Aquatics, he's new in the business, but he's quarantining things, and he sells online. So what's going on when you see people on Craigslist or on Facebook groups that they're selling fish, and they may have a website, but they're just crazy good deals on fish and plants? Well, oftentimes what's going on is they will price things out by what the list says. So they'll get a list from a transshipper, and that transshipper, say in LA or Boston or Chicago, wherever they may be, they will give a price list like the one we saw, and the person will think, okay, well, I just need to double that price, add the price of shipping, and I'll make my money back, And newer shippers and newer people in the business oftentimes underprice their fish, not knowing that it's going to cost them later. So it may look like it's undercutting the rest of the competition, but oftentimes it's a good sign that that person doesn't know what they're doing quite yet. They haven't perfected their importing, and they're not holding on to things and quarantining them long term. So if you know that you order something and it's going to take them another week or two to ship it out because they have to source it, that is a red flag, in that they are getting things from a transshipper, and they're probably just going to flip it and ship it to you as soon as they get it. Oftentimes transshippers or these online sites like this, they'll wait till, say, 10 people order one of the same fish, and they'll even collect money ahead of time. And then what they're going to do is they're going to use your money to buy the fish, and then those fish come in, maybe they lose some, and they hope that it works out that they have enough. However, you can see how these things can collapse if they lose. For instance, in a blizzard, maybe all 5 boxes of thousands of dollars of fish get lost and have perished. In that case, they still need to fulfill their promise, and oftentimes they'll just disappear. That's what used to happen on Aquabid and on some of the, Craigslist and eBay listings back in the day. And it's one of the many reasons why they stopped listing live fish on like Facebook and many platforms like that. A responsible person that's in that position is going to get the money themselves. They're going to put the money up front, order what they think is a popular fish. They may ask what people want, but they're going to order it, they're going to get it, and they're going to sit on it. But remember, that's been through whoever caught the fish, whoever got it to the regional hub in their country, whoever got it to the exporting hub and or the exporter, and then whoever is the importer. You got 4 steps there already, probably at a minimum. At best, you may hope that they catch it in the wild, or it's a farm in Southeast Asia where they get the fish, they send it to the exporter speaks English or French or Dutch or whatever language they're shipping to, and they're able to export to these countries, and maybe you only have 3 steps in the process before your wholesaler gets the fish and that fish is now in your country of origin. Well, then it has to go to whatever your retailer is, and again, every time you move a fish, it could cause stress. You have to trust everyone in that line of supply that they're keeping and treating the fish properly, they're acclimating them, they're treating them for disease, or at least they've been treated somewhere along the line for disease. And then a lot of responsible fish owners will say that you need to once again treat them. Now for me, I think it's not the best to expose them to antibiotics so many times, and that you should really sit on the fish and just watch it, just observe it, and don't put it in with a bunch of other fish that it could cause parasites and other illnesses to spread to. But in my opinion, they medicate them, they treat them prophylactically, they make sure that they're okay, as kind of a overdoing it, of overabundance of caution oftentimes. And a lot of retail stores will do that too. So it's important to know, have they already done that? And do you want to expose your fish again to that? Or are you okay with having to do that yourself? A lot of fish stores that don't quarantine and don't treat sick fish, it could spread to all their fish. All their tanks should be suspect. And in my opinion, you need to put those fish in a place where they can do minimum damage if they are contagious and if they all pass away. Ultimately, you'll save a lot of money knowing these things about the source of your fish, or just knowing the reviews, and that at least everyone else, thousands of positive reviews or comments, have faith in that source. Then that's going to be a pretty good indicator that that is a somewhat reliable source. But do your own homework, and I hope that with this information, a little bit of this has been more illuminated for all of you.
Thank you so much, you guys, for watching another episode of FISHTORY. I couldn't make this show without you. And it's thanks to all the members, all the super chats and super thanks. It goes so far into maintaining the fish room, getting me out traveling and checking out new topics and ideas, and giving me the time in my life to do the research, to make the connections, and to bring you pieces of, supposed journalism like this one. So if you enjoyed it, I would really appreciate if you left a comment, even just for engagement. And make sure that you're subscribed if you want to see my content in the future. Making sure the bell is selected to all so that you get some of the alerts when I create new content. And leaving a thumbs up. All those things really do help, and it means a lot to me. Thank you for all the things you guys do as a community here, and I will see you next time on FISHTORY.